Do you remember that time when every other game seems to be a game about killing zombies? And this seems to have spiked between 2008 and 2016, but luckily it seems to have cooled down. Well, kinda. Of course, I'm not claiming that this is the only time that we've ever seen a zombie game, because games about zombies have always been around. Think about Resident Evil, even before Resident Evil. Zombie games have always been present and people have always loved them. But there was this certain time where every single game seemed to have had the same aesthetic when it came to zombies, and only a fair few actually trying to do something different. Only a fair few made people go, I might give it a try, where others where people may look into it and actually feel kind of sick of seeing it, getting bored of it. I'm not saying that having zombies in the game immediately made it bad, I'm just saying that it was just getting kind of old and getting kind of tired. But I kind of have a theory of what happened here. So let's look at games like Dead Rising 1 for example. Probably one of the biggest reasons why games with zombies in it became so popular. Dead Rising 1 did something that not many horror games did, and that was just to spin the formula on its head by making one simple change. During the PlayStation 2 era, it gave us something quite interesting when it came to zombie horror games. When you think of zombie games from the PlayStation 2, a lot of it means that the zombie games were intentionally horror. You would always link the zombies with a horror game, and each game would actually try to be scary. Look at the overall tone that the Resident Evil went for during this whole entire era. It was dark, it was gritty, it was atmospheric. It was really important to make sure the zombies looked creepy and actually felt creepy. I'm not just saying that on PlayStation 2, I mean even think of Resident Evil Remake. All of a sudden giving a zombie an upstep and speed, and the fact that they can come back whenever they want and chase down the player all immediately made it completely more terrifying and actually made zombies feel like a threat. But there seems to be a difference between the zombie games we have now and the zombie games we had then. When we have a zombie game now, every zombie will probably look the same and quite gross. Don't get me wrong, parts of the zombies and even kid-friendly zombie games of course are going to have a little childish charm, but majority of zombie games actually still look gross. A lot of zombies are very detailed and actually look like they could be genuinely scary. But back then, if you had a game where the zombies look genuinely scary, then that probably means it's intentionally going to be a horror game. If you wanted to make a zombie game that wasn't intentionally meant to be a hardcore horror game, you'd intentionally change the zombies, make them green, make them look a little bit more friendly. Think about Stubbs the Zombie for example, or even Grabbed by the Ghoulies. A lot of these zombies just look green, or they're just skeletons, therefore they're not zombies, they're skeletons, but still they're animated dead, so you know, they're in the same ballpark. And even if you look at the original trailer for Dead Island, which was originally meant to come out for the original Xbox and PlayStation era, it's a lot more darker in tone. Yeah, the zombies don't look much different than they do in the new version, but it's a lot darker in the tone. There's a lot more greys inside the colours. It's not as colourful and fun looking as the new version. But then let's take a look at the first original Dead Rising trailer.
I'm a wartime photojournalist. I've seen it all. Horror, famine, death. The real stuff of nightmares. At least, that's what I thought. That was until I saw a corpse get up, walk, and kill. You probably think I'm nuts. The dead getting up and walking? Zombies. I'm not nuts though. Right now, if things go well, I may get my hands on a Pulitzer or something. It's not like you hear about too many zombie stories in the news these days.
The trailer starts up dark, it's slow paced, the music in the background is eerie, Frank is describing the disgusting look of the zombies, and thanks to the power of the Xbox 360, the zombies were able to look more detailed and more decrepit than ever before. And they really used this in the trailer. They made it look claustrophobic, they made sure the character and the camera was close to the zombies, making you almost feeling like maybe Capcom was trying to go back to the old Resident Evil roots, giving it an old claustrophobic vibe. Even in the trailer we see Frank walking down a small hallway, and then all of a sudden it happens in the trailer. The music all of a sudden becomes rocky and loud and there's high energy. All of a sudden just to stick a middle finger up to the old school Resident Evil saying, hey, no more of this claustrophobic shit, we're zooming this shit out and giving you a whole big space to work with and letting you kill zombies in any way you want to. And even in this trailer we see Frank doing the most ridiculous things that you would never even dream of doing to zombies before. But something never changed. And that's the tone and how the game looked. It still looked like it should be a horror game. So in theory, Dead Rising is still a horror game. Kids will probably find it scary. Keeping the zombies and giving the zombies a realistic look instead of making them green and more happy to give it a lighter tone, that wasn't going to cut it. They had to make it look realistic and they had to make it look like a horror game. Because when you play this game, gives you a sense of empowerment, especially if you grew up playing games like Resident Evil, games that were so slow and actually restricted your movement and actually how you could kill zombies. This time around, it's giving you the whole entire environment, it's giving you entire new maps and new weapons to play with. It's interesting to see this dynamic switched on its head so vastly. And you're probably saying, Nathan, what does zombies looking scary have to do with anything to do with killing zombies and why the spike in games actually rose in zombie games? Well, think about it. Think about massive gaming juggernauts like Call of Duty World at War. Call of Duty World at War released in November 2008. Funny enough, it actually released a week before Left 4 Dead 1. Now that's probably not too important right now, but think about it. Call of Duty World at War gave Call of Duty players everything they ever wanted, and it's still, to me, the best Call of Duty game ever released. But it also introduced Nazi Zombies. Nazi Zombies is now a staple in the Call of Duty name, to the fact that it's actually taken the front seat over an actual campaign. Think about that. Think how much of an impact this Nazi Zombies mode had, and think about how many copies this game sold. Not just to a niche market of people who enjoy horror games or even enjoy Capcom games, for example, but people who just wanted to play Call of Duty. They were pleasantly surprised when they found this mini hidden game in it. And this game expanded, and it gave players so much replayability, even still to this day having one of the strongest communities in gaming. Even to the stage when you don't have to play Call of Duty to say, yeah, Call of Duty Zombies is pretty fun. It was a massive phenomenon, and it was probably the best move that Call of Duty has still ever done to this day. Making that in the game was incredible, and overall it's actually kind of creepy. Think about the zombies in that game, listen to their sounds, listen to what they do. It's creepy, they actually generally are scary. I was scared of the zombie from Ocarina of Time, for example, when they scream at you. I don't even want to know what little kids would probably think of the zombies from Nazi Zombies, because overall they're scary, they are kind of creepy. Though they've gotten a little dulled down over the years, the first original ones are just like, ooh, creepy. Then 1 week later, or even then, more importantly, a month before Christmas. Christmas in 2008, everyone is going to get video games. Me especially, I remember getting Left 4 Dead. Now, Left 4 Dead was important because people who loved zombies from the Call of Duty World at War now have a fully pledged multiplayer game made by Valve. Valve are obviously known for their Half-Life and Portal series, and kind of wanted to let people know, hey, not all our games are just physics puzzles, you know. And they actually wanted to get in touch with the mainstream audience by releasing this game on the Xbox 360 and also on PC. They wanted to make sure this game would sell, and this game sold, my theory is because of Call of Duty World at War. This game sold phenomenally because people just wanted more zombies. People wanted to kill more and more, and this game actually mimicked almost what Call of Duty Zombies was offering, a 4-player co-op game which lets you kill millions of zombies. Of course, it doesn't have the survival elements, but it actually has the checkpoints and stage elements, actually giving a lot more variety in the gameplay, including Special Infected. Left 4 Dead was a massive hit, and even 1 year later had released Left 4 Dead 2, which was even a bigger hit, and even still to this day has a strong community. And what did these two massive juggernauts do, more importantly? They opened up the eyes to other companies, realising, hey, wait a minute, zombies work. Zombies don't have to just be horror games anymore, and zombies can look however the hell we want them, as long as we give the elements of it fun and make it empowering, and that's what's really important. And this sold to so many companies, and I mean so many companies. Right, now let's talk about another massive factor. Selling dreams to people. Now that may sound a little bit crazy, but hear me out. In 2010, a little show launched called The Walking Dead. This was on every mainstream channel. You can find it on Channel 4, or was it Channel 5 now? Everyone was watching it, to the stage that my mum was watching this show, is still watching this show, and it has such a big growing audience. You didn't have to be a gamer anymore to enjoy a zombie movie or even enjoy a zombie show. This show really related with a lot of people. And that's what helped sell games. Literally, people wanted to feel like they were in a zombie apocalypse. People wanted to experience that more and more. People were like, holy shit, The Walking Dead is great. I kind of want to get that same sort of feeling myself. And then came along a lot more zombie games which almost shared the same aesthetic as The Walking Dead. In 2011, we got Dead Island 1. Yeah, that was meant to come out on previous generations, but all of a sudden it went undercover and now has come back with a lot more of a colourful tone. Though still overall being a horror game and probably its weakest part of taking itself too seriously, it seemed to have related with a lot of people who may have enjoyed The Walking Dead. People seeing zombie shows and character shows put together and actually kind of creating an atmospheric game where they feel like they're involved and they're immersed. And more importantly, you can play with 4 friends, a lot more like Left 4 Dead and even Call of Duty Nazis. People really enjoyed this. People want more zombie games where they have to work with their friends and actually feel immersed in a world, and no other game was offering that at the time rather than Dead Island. Dead Island was a massive success, though it did have its problems. By 2012, it's safe to say that the infection had already taken over. There are zombie games everywhere. Even Rockstar, creating Red Dead Redemption, decided to make a zombie DLC, which has nothing really to do with the game and is still considered one of the greatest DLCs of all time. And this was a very solid DLC with great zombies and very interesting ideas. Zombies made such a big massive impact in the gaming industry that it almost prompted Resident Evil to go back to its roots and try and bring back zombies. Obviously, it didn't work out well because Resident Evil 6 was fucking terrible and it was trying to please everybody by adding a little bit of everything, which seems to be a common occurrence with Capcom, but we'll get to that later on. And this is when I want to introduce the Disguised Zombie game. What is the Disguised Zombie game? Well, for that we're going to have to look into 2013. I say it wasn't until 2013 when people started really saying, I'm getting kind of bored of this genre now. And then that's when we introduced maybe one of the greatest games ever made. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die on the internet. I know a lot of people are gonna argue here and say that The Last of Us isn't a zombie game. And it is. I'm sorry, but it is. The people who you're killing, the infected, they're dead. Their brain is dead. The virus is based on the Orthocordyceps unilateralis. How the fuck do we say?
Orthocordyceps unilateralis.
What she said is interesting, but overall is reanimating a corpse, controlling it and getting it to somewhere else, sometimes making it more aggressive just to protect it. And this is exactly what the virus is based off in The Last of Us. It's interesting and it's cool and it's extremely scary because it's real! The Last of Us is more than just a zombie game in disguise, though it is still there. Aesthetically, it still works as a zombie game. It still hits the same beats as previous zombie games. Come on, look at the affected. There's nothing really too original here. Supposed by the clicker, which I suppose is probably the most original they got, we have things like the bloaters. Bloaters, big fat guys that spit things. Very original, guys. No one's ever done it before. But the zombies or infected in this game are a lot more different and a lot more fast paced and a lot more intelligent than we're actually used to. But overall, it still works and still connects with people's fantasy of surviving in the zombie apocalypse, especially with shows like The Walking Dead. The Last of Us showed more of a character and human side of the survival, and it's really interesting and actually made for one of the greatest games of all time and one of the greatest stories ever told. It's touching and definitely worth a play. But overall, it sold very well and actually related with people because people just wanted to live in the apocalypse. The apocalypse of zombies! 1 year later after the release of The Last of Us, we finally get taken into the next gen, which is now the current gen that we're on with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One X and yes, the Switch. And the launch game with the Xbox One was Sunset Overdrive, developed by Insomniac, who would later on use the exactly same engine for Sunset Overdrive to make the new Spider-Man game, which is really interesting and really cool and totally makes sense if you've ever played Sunset Overdrive. But what is Sunset Overdrive? Oh look, more zombies. Though arguably they look a little bit more like mutants, people still get infected through bites and scratches, die, and then come back reanimated, looking a little bit different, but yes, overall, it's still just a zombie game. It's a zombie game with a lot more colour and a lot more flair and a lot more style, based on the movement around more on momentum rather than having to take on hordes of zombies at a time. It actually encourages you just to keep moving, move along, and actually use them as an obstacle to get past. Of course, I'm not saying that the Disguised Zombie games really first came around with the new current gen. No, that's not true at all. I mean, games have been doing it for a while. Think of Crackdown 2. They had the freaks. Even Dead Space 1. I know it's quite controversial, but Dead Space 1 is a zombie game. The zombies are reanimated, come back to life. That's what the necromorphs are. They're just zombies, of course, with an extra flair. Hey, even The Evil Within, I see that as a cover-up zombie game as well. Though it takes a lot more cues from Resident Evil 4, making the villagers seem a little bit less more parasite-like and a little bit more actual undead and reanimated, which is exactly what they are. Therefore, it's just another zombie game. But once again, this game sort of had its problems. Rather than trying to make it like a fun horror game, it kind of tried to go back to the old era and wanted to make it a dark, gritty, horrible, dirty aesthetic and actually try to make it more come across as a horror game. Zombie games and just undead games have just gone old. People started getting bored at this point. A lot more different games were coming out, and actually it was quite rare to see a zombie game that was actually a AAA title. Then Techland did something quite different. The developers of Dead Island, they gave us Dying Light. So we've seen a lot of great zombie games on this generation, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One alike, but maybe my favourite one of all time is Dying Light. Dying Light actually kind of did something different with the zombie formula, giving players something that they've wanted for a very long time. Mirror's Edge came out years ago and people have always been begging for an open world Mirror's Edge parkour game. Then we got Mirror's Edge 2 and no one played it at all. Dying Light was a spiritual successor to Dead Island, even though Dead Island 2 was officially around the corner this time of year, though we haven't seen it. Where's Dead Island 2? Dying Light somehow mixed parkour with survival horror and also a first-person melee-based adventure game, which is really interesting when you think about it. And the zombies in this game are a legit threat, and actually generally are quite creepy. If you take on more than one, you're probably going to have a hard time. And even if more than 5 come, then you better get out of there. This game doesn't encourage you to kill zombies, though it is very necessary to improve your character and level up. It encourages you to use your rooftops and keep the momentum going. Very similar to games like Sunset Overdrive. Then they introduced the Volatile. Now the Volatile is probably the most important thing about this game and what it did for zombies. The Volatile will hunt you down aggressively, and even more intimidating than the fact that it knows exactly what it's doing and that it knows exactly what it's looking for, it can parkour and run at stupidly ridiculous fucking speeds. I mean, if you're driving at the car and you can look behind you while you're driving, look at these things. This thing is intimidating and it's very impressive. I am scared to play this game at night time because there's no point going out because your character will die. But you get double XP if you do survive the night, which is really interesting, and it really gave it a good sense of survival, and it's all about using your brain and all about thinking about what you're actually doing. And the Volatile for that is probably my favourite zombie infected of all time ever been made. They're generally creepy and they're very well done. They're just aggressive, they're strong, and even more importantly, they're confident. They ain't stumbling around, no, they're walking around with their shoulders up and they just want to look like they're going to punch you in the fucking face! Dying Light was a nice spin on a dying genre, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to save it. And even after years and years of zombies coming back to Call of Duty and then even trying to change it up once with Aliens, which just didn't really work out, the zombie genre was just getting slowly and slowly more slowed down. And then 2016 happened and then we saw Dead Rising 4. Dead Rising 4 is probably one of the worst things I've ever had to play. Unfortunately, it can still be fun at times. And I say unfortunately because I don't want to say anything good about this game because this game is just arse. They brought back Frank West from the original Dead Rising, but this time less than being Frank West, they changed his voice actor, his look, how skinny he is, his actual entire personality. He sometimes comes across a lot more like Ash Williams from the Evil Dead rather than Frank.
Kind of stuffy in here, don't you think? A little fresh air, you know.
This game tried to please too many people. It wanted to hit with the mainstream audience, taking away all survivors and psychopaths from the previous games and now just making them generic unnamed NPCs, which you just save and they run off and then give you XP, and the psychopaths you just beat and that's it, congratulations. There's no more lovable characters, there's nothing very memorable about this game. I don't even remember the plot to this game, it was awful, and they even tried to add fast-paced special infected, very similar to those of the likes of Volatile, which literally added nothing to the game and actually just made more of an annoyance and just in the way. The zombies in this game were just obstacles and completely looked bland and boring. People complain about Dead Rising 3 changing its style aesthetically, but no, at least it isn't a terrible copy and paste. All the zombies have different coloured jumpers like it's a bag of fucking Skittles trying to eat the human race. Something I actually do like about this game, and it's going to sound very peculiar, it's nothing to do with the plot. It's nothing to do with the zombies, nothing to even do with the fucking gameplay. I like the fact that it's set during Christmas, and this kind of gives it a totally different spin than other games. I like the fact that when Christmas comes around, there are just certain movies you watch. Muppets Christmas Carol is still the best Christmas movie to this day, right next to Die Hard. Fight me otherwise, I'll fucking kill. It's nice to have a seasonal based game. It's nice to have a game where you can be like, hey look, it's that time of year again, I'm going to play this, but unfortunately it's Dead Rising 4, and no one's going to play it. And that's exactly what happened. So Capcom Vancouver, the developers of Dead Rising 2 and onwards, they're now closed down. And the Dead Rising franchise is just up in the air. Capcom said it's still being handled by somebody else, but they're yet to say anything. But it's up in the air and I'm curious to see what they're going to do. I would love to see a next Dead Rising game, but on the Resident Evil 7 engine. That would be fucking incredible. Maybe even make it more horror based. Maybe people are getting sick of killing zombie hordes over and over again. Make it a little bit more personal, a lot more like the other game, Resident Evil 2. Now, to say that the genre is dead is ridiculous, because we've got many more zombie games coming this way, but Last of Us 2 and even Dying Light 2 are quite interesting because it seems to be that they're taking more of a humanised approach. They're yet to even actually show or even reveal anything to do with the infected, where when the first ones came about it was quite blam, in your face, here's a zombie game. This time around it's a lot more about character and about how humans are actually handling the apocalypse and the situation that they're stuck in. And maybe this is the future approach for zombie games, to make every single fight maybe just a little bit more impactful and actually meaning something. Maybe almost like you're fighting for your survival rather than you're fighting for points. We also have Days Gone coming out very soon, and that game actually looks quite interesting, putting a spin on the formula of Dead Rising and even a lot more like Left 4 Dead. The zombies actually mimicking something that even resembles stuff like World War Z, where they're fast and they're just aggressively after you, but it's all about you not having to take them on individually and beating them as fast as you can, but it's about you escaping, about you outrunning them, about out tricking them. It's really interesting and I like to see where this would would go. Unfortunately though, it's not on my day one list, but I will give it a go. But somehow the zombie genre is still sort of going on in the background, and it probably ain't going to be going anywhere at all, because in truth, people just love killing zombies. I don't know what it is, and my theory is maybe it's just to take out stress. Zombies do look like humans, and humans get pissed off by other humans, and they want to kill humans. Not as the intention, because that's completely psychopathic, but maybe if they don't have a brain and they don't actually resemble anything to do with humans, maybe it takes away that stress and it's almost therapeutic. Maybe that's why people will always love zombie games, even though they say it's a dying genre. Let's look at the virtual reality as well. For example, they're doing something completely different with zombie games. The other day I was playing one where you have to play as a chef and feed zombies, and then they turn into a camp man.
Amazing!
Not even lying, I'm not even sure what this means. Though we do have a handful of our horde killing zombie games on VR, majority of the time it's quite different because you're actually there and the zombies actually still feel intimidating even though they shouldn't be. Even the zombies in the cooking game, though they're green and silly looking, that one of the windows like, oh Jesus Christ. If you've managed to stick around to the end of this video, I'm sorry for how long it took, and I'm sorry that it was a little bit more different than I'm usually used to. But I had fun writing it and I wanted to try something a little bit different, so here we go. This was what it was. Maybe I'll do more of these in the future, or maybe I'll shorten them down at least. But thank you so much for watching this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you at the next checkpoint.